Picture this: a Cold War-era fighter jet carrying weapons that were never designed to fit, held together with voltage regulators and electrical tape, threading through the deadliest air defense network on the planet. What you're about to witness is the extraordinary story of how Ukrainian ingenuity turned an impossible mission into a devastating blow against one of the world's most advanced military forces. This isn't just about aerial combat. It's about the remarkable fusion of American precision technology with Soviet-era aircraft, creating a weapon system that shouldn't exist but somehow works. The afternoon sky over eastern Ukraine holds its breath as a Ukrainian MiG-29 Fulcrum climbs steadily through the thin air. Beneath each wing, something extraordinary hangs in defiance of engineering logic. American GBU-62 JDAM precision bombs mounted on NATO ejector racks. These sophisticated guided weapons were never meant to be carried by a Soviet-designed fighter. Yet here they are, jury-rigged with voltage regulators and held in place by the kind of improvised engineering that has become Ukraine's trademark in this conflict. The pilot checks his instruments as the digital clock reads 14:32 local time. In just 15 minutes, this decades-old aircraft will attempt something that military planners once considered pure fantasy: delivering GPS-guided American ordnance deep into heavily defended Russian territory. The target? A massive ammunition depot at Malinovka, where intelligence reports indicate 2 elite Russian brigades are stockpiling supplies for a major offensive. But first, he has to survive what's coming next. The distinctive chirping in his headset suddenly changes to a steady, ominous warble. His blood runs cold as he recognizes the sound. An S-400 Triumph surface-to-air missile system has just switched from search mode to tracking mode. Somewhere below, one of Russia's most advanced air defense systems has painted his aircraft with its radar beam, calculating intercept vectors with lethal precision. The mathematics of survival are brutally simple. The S-400's 48N6 missile can reach his current position in just over 60 seconds, traveling at speeds that make escape seem impossible. Without hesitation, the pilot triggers his chaff dispenser, sending metallic clouds blooming behind the MiG as he throws the aircraft into a violent dive. Trading altitude for speed, he watches his airspeed indicator climb past 600 knots while the altimeter spins downward through 25,000 feet. The chaff works exactly as designed, confusing the S-400's radar and breaking its lock. But in the deadly chess game of modern air combat, every defensive move creates new vulnerabilities. The radar bloom from his countermeasures lights up passive sensors across a 100-kilometer radius like a beacon, advertising his position to every enemy system in the theater. Within moments, a prowling Su-35 flanker begins vectoring from the northeast, its pilot calculating an intercept course with predatory patience. As the MiG screams through descending altitude, a new threat materializes on the pilot's radar warning receiver. The distinctive signature of a Book M3 acquisition radar cuts through the electronic noise, scanning in rapid bursts that indicate imminent engagement. Unlike the long-range S-400, which requires time to calculate complex intercept solutions, the Book specializes in destroying aircraft at medium altitudes, exactly where the Ukrainian pilot has just positioned himself in his desperate dive. The Book M3 system represents the nightmare scenario for any attacking pilot. Designed specifically to engage targets between 15 and 30,000 feet, it can transition from detection to missile launch in under 20 seconds. The pilot has inadvertently flown directly into its optimal engagement envelope, where the system's 9M317 missiles are most lethal. Every second of hesitation now brings him closer to becoming another statistic in this electronic battlefield. Despite the mounting threats, the mission continues. The JDAM ER bombs hanging beneath his wings require a crucial GPS pre-alignment sequence before they can achieve their advertised precision. Each weapon needs a complete satellite lock and position update to deliver the pinpoint accuracy that makes them so devastating against hardened targets. At 20,000 feet, flying straight and level for 15 precious seconds, the pilot becomes a sitting duck while his weapon systems communicate with satellites orbiting hundreds of miles above. The alignment bar creeps across his multifunction display with agonizing slowness. 40%, 60%, 80%. Each percentage point represents another moment of vulnerability, another second for enemy systems to calculate firing solutions. Then, just as the GPS alignment nears completion, his threat warning system erupts with a new contact, and Su-35 flanker, 60 kilometers away and closing at Mach 1.4. The Russian pilot flying that Su-35 is no amateur. Rather than rushing into a head-on engagement, he's demonstrating the kind of tactical patience that separates elite aviators from the merely competent. Maintaining a 40-kilometer standoff distance, he's positioning himself to execute a classic hammer and anvil maneuver, using the ground-based SAM systems as his anvil while he serves as the hammer, driving the Ukrainian MiG toward destruction. This tactical geometry creates an impossible situation for the Ukrainian pilot. Turn away from the approaching fighter, and he flies directly into the SAM engagement zones. Evade the surface-to-air missiles, and he presents an easy target for the Su-35's advanced air-to-air missiles. Continue on course toward the target, and he faces converging fires from multiple directions. There are no good options in this deadly equation, only varying degrees of certain death. The fuel gauge becomes another enemy, its needle dropping toward the red zone with each defensive maneuver. Combat flying burns fuel at astronomical rates, especially when afterburners are screaming at maximum power during evasive maneuvers. The pilot calculates his remaining options with the cold mathematics that every military aviator learns by heart. He's already 200 kilograms below planned consumption, and every additional minute of high-G maneuvering brings him closer to the point of no return. Meanwhile, the target data from Malinovka glows on his tactical display like a digital promise of destruction. Satellite imagery updated just 6 hours earlier shows massive vehicle movement and ammunition transfers. Two of Russia's most elite units, the 39th Guards Motor Rifle Brigade and elements of the 110th Guards, are consolidating their supplies for what intelligence analysts believe will be a major push toward Pokrovsk. Destroying this depot could cripple their offensive capabilities for weeks, potentially saving countless Ukrainian lives. But reaching that target means surviving the next few minutes of the most dangerous flying of his career. The Su-35 pilot finally makes his move, switching his powerful Irbis-E radar from search mode to single-target track. The distinctive tone fills the Ukrainian pilot's headset, the sound every fighter pilot dreads, indicating that an enemy missile launch is imminent. In seconds, an R-77 Adder will be screaming through the sky at 40 times the force of gravity, guided by one of the most sophisticated air-to-air missiles ever created. The Ukrainian pilot executes a textbook notching maneuver, turning perpendicular to the threat radar and forcing the missile's Doppler system to lose track among ground clutter. But this defensive geometry carries him directly over a Tor M2 battery that has been waiting in electromagnetic silence, invisible until the moment he crosses into its lethal radius. The Tor springs to life like a predator, pouncing on wounded prey, its own missiles already spinning up for launch. Caught between converging fires, the pilot faces the kind of split-second decision that defines aerial combat. The target is still 90 kilometers away, too far for JDAM release, even with their extended-range kit. Physics and geography are conspiring against him, creating a tactical puzzle with no clean solutions. His only option is to thread the needle between multiple missile systems while maintaining enough airspeed and altitude to complete his attack run. Rolling inverted, he pulls the aircraft into a split S maneuver that trades his remaining altitude for a complete reversal of direction. The half-loop drops him from 15,000 feet to 10,000 feet in a matter of seconds, using terrain masking to break radar locks while forcing the pursuing Su-35 to recalculate its attack geometry. But every meter of altitude lost is a meter less standoff distance for his weapons at release, bringing him closer to the defensive systems protecting his target. The pilot deploys his complete flare suite, 60 burning magnesium pellets scattered behind the MiG like metallic fireworks. Each decoy creates a false infrared signature designed to confuse heat-seeking missiles, but the move also creates an unexpected problem. The Su-35's advanced electro-optical system locks onto the flare cloud, then systematically filters through the decoys to identify the real heat signature of the MiG's engines burning bright against the cold afternoon sky. Now the Russian has achieved a passive track. No radar emissions to trigger warning systems. No electronic signature to indicate an impending missile launch. The OLS-35 infrared search and track system provides a firing solution as accurate as any radar, but without the telltale electronic emissions that would alert the Ukrainian pilot to his mortal danger. In the deadly game of electronic warfare, silence often proves more lethal than the loudest radar. Switching on his targeting pod, the Ukrainian pilot struggles to acquire visual confirmation of his aim point through the afternoon haze. The Soviet-era optics strain to designate a building 80 kilometers away, the image wavering and pixelating as atmospheric conditions interfere with the targeting solution. The picture barely shows the ammunition depot's outline, but modern precision weapons don't require perfect imagery. Just coordinates accurate enough to place warheads within their circular error probable. A pre-release checklist runs through the pilot's mind, while death approaches from multiple vectors. GPS antenna alignment shows complete, but degraded by electronic jamming. Weapon fuses are armed for delayed penetration, designed to punch through reinforced concrete before detonating. Release parameters are marginal at best, but every second of straight flight improves accuracy while simultaneously providing the Su-35 with a predictable target. The Russian pilot finally takes his shot. A single R-77 adder leaves its rail, immediately accelerating past Mach 4 as its sophisticated seeker head begins painting the Ukrainian MiG with active radar. The missile appears on the threat display already closing at impossible speed, its impact timer counting down from 58 seconds. The Ukrainian pilot forces himself to maintain course for 3 more precious seconds, allowing the JDAM computers to refine their targeting solution, while death screams toward him through the thin air. 15 kilometers from the release point, his weapons can glide from this position, though accuracy will suffer from the reduced standoff distance. But he doesn't have the luxury of optimal geometry. The straight-line approach also provides the TOR system with a clean firing solution, and it responds by launching 2 missiles in a staggered pattern, the first forcing him to brake in one direction, positioning him perfectly for the second missile's intercept 3 seconds later. 7 seconds to solve an impossible equation. The fuel gauge reads 19 kilograms, barely enough for a straight-line dash home, with no margin for additional maneuvering. Every pilot learns the fundamental mathematics of aerial survival. Speed is life, altitude is life insurance, and fuel is time. He's spending all 3 accounts simultaneously, betting everything on reaching weapon release before his balance hits 0. The decision crystallizes in an instant of perfect clarity. Full afterburner, nose down 10 degrees, racing toward the release point while death closes from 3 directions. The R-77 has gone active, no longer requiring guidance from the launching aircraft. Its internal radar has taken over the intercept, painting his aircraft with the electronic signature of certain death. There's no more hiding, no more maneuvering. The The missile knows exactly where he is. At exactly 14:47, he hits the release button. Nothing happens. The first JDAM hangs stubbornly on its pylon, the MER-12 ejector mechanism frozen by voltage fault, mechanical failure, or simple bad luck. The bomb refuses to separate while missiles scream toward him from every direction, each second of delay bringing multiple warheads closer to their lethal rendezvous with his aircraft. Cycling the release system while pulling crushing G-forces in a defensive brake turn, the pilot hammers the button with desperate intensity. The R-77 adjusts course with impossible agility, pulling angles that would snap a manned aircraft in half. 10 seconds to impact. The Tor missiles climb through 8,000 feet, their proximity fuses armed and searching for their target. 5 seconds to impact, and he's still carrying ordnance that should already be gliding toward the target. Emergency manual override. The pilot yanks the mechanical release handle, feeling the linkage force the stubborn ejector open through pure mechanical advantage. The first JDAM finally separates, its wings deploying as the weapon enters its programmed glide path. But the release happens during a 7G turn, way outside normal parameters, causing the weapon to tumble briefly before its guidance system stabilizes and begins the complex process of navigating toward its target. The second bomb releases cleanly, and both JDAMs become autonomous, their computers calculating optimal glide paths while their carrier fights for survival. Initially confused by the off-axis release, the weapons slowly converge on their target coordinates, now 60 kilometers away. Their GPS receivers struggle against electronic jamming, falling back on backup inertial navigation systems while comparing terrain features against stored digital maps. The R-77 arrives. 9 Gs, maximum performance, vision tunneling to a gray straw as the pilot's body fights against forces that would crush an unprotected human. The missile's proximity fuse calculates the optimal intercept point, waits for maximum fragment dispersion, then detonates in a burst of directed energy and shrapnel. Metal tears through the MiG's tail section, puncturing hydraulic lines and severing control cables, but the aircraft continues flying. Barely. Diving for the deck saves him from the Tor missiles, which lose their radar lock in ground clutter, but creates a new threat. Shilka anti-aircraft guns protecting the target area come alive, their 423mm cannons per vehicle, filling the sky with radar-guided tungsten death. Too low to evade, too damaged to climb, burning his last fuel reserves just to maintain course, the pilot becomes a flying target in a shooting gallery designed to destroy low-flying aircraft. The JDAMs continue their silent journey, adjusting course every few seconds as their guidance systems process degraded GPS signals and backup navigation data. These are smart weapons in the truest sense, comparing actual terrain features against stored maps to refine their position estimates. Despite electronic jamming and the chaotic release conditions, they're homing in on their targets with the relentless precision that makes modern warfare so devastating. At 14:53, the first JDAM reaches Malinovka. The 500-pound warhead carries 192 pounds of tritonal explosive, designed to punch through hardened targets before detonating. The weapon strikes the ammunition storage facility with surgical precision, and then the real fireworks begin. Artillery shells cook off in massive chain reactions, Grad rockets explode in their storage crates, and small arms ammunition creates a crackling symphony of destruction that can be heard for kilometers. The blast throws an 8-ton BTR-82 armored vehicle 50 meters through the air like a discarded toy. Windows shatter 5 kilometers away as the expanding shock wave ripples outward through the surrounding countryside. 45 seconds later, the second JDAM strikes the command post housing coordination between the two elite Russian brigades. The building simply ceases to exist, along with all communication equipment, planning documents, and coordination capabilities. Using the massive smoke column as cover, the damaged MiG limps toward Ukrainian airspace at an altitude of just 200 meters. Hydraulic fluid streams behind the aircraft as the control stick fights every input, demanding constant correction to maintain level flight. The fuel gauge reads 400 kilograms, 10 minutes of gentle flight, or 5 minutes if afterburner becomes necessary. The Russian Su-35 turns back rather than pursue into Ukrainian SAM coverage, its pilot demonstrating the same tactical wisdom that kept him alive during the engagement. Malinovka burns with secondary explosions continuing for hours, each blast representing tons of ammunition that will never reach Ukrainian front lines. The planned Russian offensive toward Pokrovsk literally goes up in smoke, all thanks to 2 American bombs delivered by a Soviet fighter held together by Ukrainian determination and ingenuity. This mission represents more than just a successful strike. It's a testament to the remarkable adaptability and innovation that has characterized Ukraine's defense against overwhelming odds. 3 years ago, mounting American precision weapons on Soviet fighters was pure fantasy. Today, Ukrainian technicians perform these kinds of miracles daily, creating weapon systems that exist nowhere in any military manual but prove devastatingly effective in actual combat. The fusion of American technology with Soviet-era platforms, held together by Ukrainian engineering creativity, has created capabilities that confound military analysts and terrify enemy commanders. It's a perfect metaphor for Ukraine's approach to this entire conflict, taking whatever resources are available, no matter how mismatched or unlikely, and turning them into effective tools of resistance against one of the world's most powerful military forces.